arguing the affirmative position on the infant industry argument.
On the what?
Infant industry argument. Infant industry argument.
So what is the resolution? What is the resolution?
Let it be solved that infant industry protectionism is advantageous to not only the domestic industry, but national welfare and the society and overall economic efficiency.
Could you say it again? I didn't understand. What's the resolution? The resolution here, Mr. Be it resolved that.
The infant industry argument is
Infant industry protection is beneficial for the world economy.
For the world.
World economy, yeah.
Oh, okay. Quite a broad statement.
We're working our way up to it.
Okay. So infant industry defense, infant industry argument is beneficial for world GDP,
Infant, yeah.
world economic growth.
You think protection is a good thing? Infant industry protection.
The infant industry argument encourages world economic growth. Is that the resolution?
Yes.
in the standard argument against protectionism, there is a case of a prisoner's dilemma. Both countries have the option to implement protectionist policies, and if both implement a tariff, by following their dominant strategies, they end up in a Nash equilibrium of double tariff protection, where both are worse off. In this short-run view, this outcome is possible when protectionism is not regulated by a unified body. Although this argument is compelling, the short-run view does not tell the full story. In the long run, it's possible if both countries are capable of creating external economies of scale in separate industries. The protectionism benefits the individual industry and society as a whole. In this case, under successful protectionism by the home country and the foreign country, the domestic country will benefit from developed industry, which is competitive with the world market, and benefit from lower import costs from the foreign market, and vice versa. In this case, both countries are strictly better off. Avoiding protectionism simply out of fear of failure or to avoid short-term costs is like settling for second best. If a more efficient outcome is possible, why not realize this outcome, maximize efficiency, surplus, and make everyone better off? This can be done through the use of protectionism. Protecting infant industries benefits the domestic industry, national welfare, and the worldwide economy and society as a whole. In terms of benefits to the domestic industry, the implementation of protectionist policies will increase prices of imported goods, thus increasing the demand on domestic firms. This will increase their profit margins and create incentive for new firms to enter the market. This encouraged industrial expansion will foster the creation of external economies of scale. Through clustering and the growth of a local supply network, and the process of learning by doing, firms are able to lower their costs, increase their profits, and grow to a point where they are competitive with the world market. Previously undeveloped industries are given the opportunity to grow at a rate which would not be possible with the presence of world market competition. In terms of benefits to national welfare, the increased demand not only facilitates growth, but increases producer surplus on each individual firm. Firms are able to sell at a higher price, increase their profits, and perpetuate more growth in the industry. This creates wealth, jobs, and increases exports in the domestic industry and country in general. The government also profits from tariff revenues and import taxes. Although there's a temporary reallocation of surplus from consumers to producers, the country benefits greatly. The benefits greatly outweigh the costs in the long run. Over time, consumer surplus is restored and even increased as industries develop and lower their average costs. This increase in total surplus in the long run outweighs any deadweight loss from tariffs made in the short run. In terms of benefits to the world market and society in general, through allowing infant industries to mature to a competitive level, efficiency can be maximized. Many industries with potential for comparative advantage are able to realize this potential due to the reduction of world market competition. In the long run, infant industry protection increases world competition, lowers prices, maximizes surplus, and produces a more efficient economy. Although protectionist policies can lead to inefficiency in the short run, long-run benefits greatly outweigh these short-run costs. When a more efficient outcome is possible, why not realize this optimal state of economic efficiency through protectionism? Why settle for second best? no, we don't need that.
No, we don't do this.
Okay.
You can turn this off.
Don't need questions.
You just turn this off. Yeah. So you just have to listen to my voice.
We're looking for.
So in competition, individual ambition serves the common good, Adam said. When you replace competition with the comfort provided by protectionism, before you know it, you are left with a lack of ambition for innovation and abundance of social debt weight loss. Protectionism is unnecessary in the first place because industries are part of the private market and startup costs are expected for every industry. If the returns for initial production costs will be covered over a period of time, there's no reason for industries not to be able to get private loans or private capital investments. There are also alternative ways for governments to help, such as the Canada Small Business Financing Program.
Sorry for interrupting. Can you just give me your names when you speak, so, because I don't have any documentation, as we know, and therefore I don't know who you are.
My name is Maggie Thomas.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so there's no need to baby an infant industry. Even when protectionism is granted, it is through the expense of public internal costs for the possibility of such labor turnover, and furthermore, it is exacerbated by the unknown quality of such industries, such as lack of knowledge, and the uncertainty of success causes them to overestimate the risks and the costs. It is also skews information gathered by the industry's success because you simply don't know how it will fare without this protectionism. The usage of typical instruments for protectionism, namely tariffs and subsidies, carry a burdensome effect on the social welfare. Tariffs are typically imposed on goods which are imported into the country, substantially inflating the price of the product. A Canadian example dates back from 1986, where the market percentages applied to imported wines averaged over 92% across 6 provinces, making the product cost twice as much as it domestically produced ones. Another domestic example is evident in the agricultural sector, where the heavy tariff impositions. It causes inflated prices for goods such as dairy products, where it costs Canadian consumers an addition of $2.6 billion a year compared to other countries. In addition, the imposition of tariffs can lead to potential trade wars. An example in the making is actually Buy American clause, where it aimed to protect domestic market at the expense of distorting global trade. Finally, subsidies are an instrument of redistribution of society's money, which society ends up paying the bill for industry's attempt to reaching sustainable production efficiency. Infant industry protection gives new industries a disincentive to innovate because it creates an apparent advantage for them. Under protectionism, even though foreign competitors can produce goods at a higher quality at a lower cost, they are sold at a higher price compared to infant industries that produce mediocre quality goods. For example, Ontario wine industry before the North American Free Trade Agreement offered low-quality wines, outdated winemaking techniques and technologies. Immediately after the agreement, it was met with huge backlash because winemakers were used to the easy way of making money. Not because the industry was not prepared, but because they simply did not want to innovate. In 2004, they again appealed to the Parliament, claiming that free market was an uneven playing field, advocating for protectionism. Which goes to show, once an infant, always an infant. The infant industry protectionism definitely outweighs the potential benefits.
Supposed to be different, right?
It's your show, but you guys do what you want.
Okay. Alright. To rebuttal their argument, one of their major points was there's no incentives for innovation. It's not always true, because if a crucial point for infant industry protection is that there has to be a strong internal demand. So if there's a strong internal demand, there's going to be local competition as well. And since firms are profit maximizers,
What was your name again?
Kurt. since firms are profit maximizers and forward-looking, they know the protectionism will be lifted eventually. So there's still incentives for them to innovate. Also, with they're making higher profit margins, more firms enter the market, they're still going to have to face that local competition. Also, with the BC wine industry, for example, they started with that plum wine, what they call very low quality wine, but with infant industry protection, it went from in the Okanagan Valley from 13 wineries to 120 wineries. And it shows that there's lots of, since they're making higher profits, more firms are entering the market. Also, one thing governments could do is force quality standards. So whatever the technology is now, they can force higher technology that pretty much enforces firms to innovate, to meet the requirement. Number one of their arguments was that you can create trade wars by doing this. We realize that there's always potential with governments, but the whole thing is that if we have a unified body that can regulate, like the WTO, we can avoid that. Just because, like we said, settling for second place, we know there's a better outcome out there. So just to ignore it altogether, to be scared of retaliatory tariffs, isn't really the best way to go. If anything, we should be funding more research, more so R&D in general to create better techniques to be able to identify these successful industries. Also, with the BC wine, with the wine that you guys are talking about, there was an increase in prices in the short run, and that's bound to happen. When you create tariffs, there's going to be a short-term cost with increased prices for domestic consumers. The whole point is that in the long run, they achieve these external economies of scale, they lower their average cost of production, and then they can go into a lower world price. So they can achieve external economies of scale, they can lower their costs, and in the long run, they can provide the wine at a lower market price for the world. As well, as far as protectionism goes, we're not saying that we're just going to use quotas and tariffs. We have realized that more integrated, more using different policy tools needs to happen. So, for instance, instead of using tariffs and quotas, like Luzio and Greenstein did a research paper on the Brazilian microcomputers, and it was a huge failure. But they were talking about how there can be successes in the end. So they were looking more into, at the conclusion of their paper, they talked about maybe quotas and tariffs weren't the way to go. And obviously nowadays, most economists agree quotas are not the best thing. So with new infant industry protection, they've been more focused on stuff like production subsidies, maybe investment in large infrastructure, like the BC film industry. The government bought a couple studios and they allowed firms to move in that way, started off. Also, like I mentioned before, increasing technology standards to encourage innovation. Mitigate coordination problems, as in with this graph, if every small firm is a point on its average cost curve. So yes, there's going to be a higher price at first, but there's no incentive for any firms to enter the market. So if governments can provide that coordination, all these producers are at a loss here, start working at the same time, they can achieve to satisfy the world demand at a lower price.
Could you explain that graph a little bit?
Yeah, so every single, on this average cost curve, is an average cost curve for a country, for an industry. So every little point on this average cost curve is a firm, right? We're talking external economies of scale. So pretty much what it's showing is that, someone else right now is satisfying the world demand, but it could be done more efficiently. But it doesn't happen because there's no incentive for any of these firms to start producing. As you can see, they go operating at economic loss. So it's a coordination problem.
Can you go over the graph now? P star and Q star is what?
Yeah, so P star is your current world price. So let's say, some California, for instance, or the States, they're producing wine at this price. BC could do it cheaper. They just haven't realized external economies of scale yet, right? So every point on this.
Where's BC then?
What? Well, we'll say AC star is BC. This is just in general, but we'll use BC here.
P star is the world price.
No, it would be the new world price. If we
Where's
were
the world price? Current world price.
current price is P.
Okay.
P star would be the new world price.
And BC has lower average cost.
They have lower average costs if they can use external economies of scale, if they can achieve it. But right now, they don't. So here's the world price. There's no incentive for any of these firms on this curve to enter the market. There's a coordination problem. So if
So all you're saying is that BC firms can produce cheaper than other firms in the rest of the world.
like BC, if they were able to start a wine industry and protect it in the beginning and solve that coordination problem, in the long run, we'd be able to serve one at a lower price because they're more efficient. So, like, comparative advantage, history plays a key role in comparative advantage. For instance, 2 Stanford graduates started Hewlett Packard, and then Silicon Valley comes up. Just because history plays a key role, as the state of the world is always changing, sometimes there is better outcomes out there. We just haven't realized them yet. But there needs to be coordination among firms. Because I said, any of these firms along this line will not want to start producing. They operate in economic loss. There's zero incentive. But let's per se, the government could make it so all these firms start producing at once. Now we're here. Now they're operating at economic profit. And in the long run, if we achieve certain economies of scale, we can satisfy the world demand at a lower price with an increase in quantity as well.
But in both equilibria, you've got the P, Q, and P star, Q star.
Yeah.
They're still just covering costs, right?
Here,
Well, in both cases, right? Because price is
Yeah.
equal to average cost.
Yeah.
Without the innovation, then price is equal to average cost
yeah.
at a higher output. But they're still, all the firms are still just covering costs.
Yeah,
It's
this is
two
like,
scenarios.
this is under like a perfect